Hello and welcome to Issues and Insights, the show that keeps you informed about all the important things going on in our community. I'm your host, Kendra Scott, and we're thrilled that you could tune in today. So we've probably all heard the acronym PVA, but do we know what it means and what the office is all about? Well, you're in luck because today we are going to talk to the man himself, our Hardin County Property Valuation Administrator, Mr. Danny Hutcherson, to tell us all about our property taxes, how our property is assessed, and what the process is all about. So please help me welcome Mr. Danny Hutcherson.
Well, thank you, Kendra.
Glad to have you here.
Good to be here.
Well,
Always good to be with you.
Well, thank you. You as well. In our WKU Red and Black, we have to give a quick shout out to our
Right,
toppers.
go Toppers.
Those go Toppers. So let's hope they got to get it back together. They've kind of fallen off the rails a little bit.
Yes,
So
right.
we're going to get that together. But first of all, we're here to talk today about PVA. And again, folks hear that acronym and they know something to do with taxes, property. Can you tell us what the PVA is and what the responsibilities are of the position?
Sure, be glad to. I was in a parade before and somebody hollered, what is the PVA? So, as Property Valuation Administrator, we're responsible for assessing all property, well, most all property in Hardin County. So if you go out and look outside, buildings, houses, farms, we put the assessments for tax purposes, basically, for a value on that property. Also, businesses, file tangible property tax returns with us. And we get involved with automobiles and trailers.
Wow.
Also.
So it really is everything.
Pretty much, except for utilities and some PSC type properties that's done centrally in Frankfort.
Okay. So tell us a little bit, what is the history kind of property taxation?
Well, Kentucky became a state in 1790?
1792, I believe,
right,
yes.
1792, and property taxes were in effect on that date, so property taxes have been with us since
the beginning.
Since the beginning
of time.
So, back in those days, it wasn't an ad valorem tax, which is based on value. It was based on, the item that you would own. Like there'd be a tax on a pool table, horse carriages.
Really? So every individual little thing?
Right.
Wow.
They actually have, a tax on that property.
So the system has gotten a little bit more sophisticated.
More sophisticated over the years. It's based on value now, and we're required by the Kentucky Constitution to assess all property at 100% fair cash value.
Oh wow! And how is that determined?
Well, we've got methods of doing that. For example, comparing your property with property that has recently sold that's similar to your property.
Okay.
A cost approach, basically about what it would cost to have built that property.
Okay.
Or, an income approach. How much income is generated from the property, and based on that, what would be the value of those cash flows.
Oh, okay.
So we've got different ways of looking at that property, and we always emphasize, we put an assessment on property, but, if the owner has a disagreement, we ask them to give us a call and share information with us so that we can get an accurate assessment to the property.
Oh, okay. Because some folks might feel really that, and maybe it's sentimental to them or something, or maybe they invested a lot of money in it, so they feel that their property is worth more than what's been assessed.
Right. Typically we don't have many people come in telling us that it's worth more than what we've got assessed. Usually the argument is it's worth less.
Oh, because they want to pay less taxes.
Well, and many times, it's adequate to do that because there's certain things we may not know about the property because we don't actually go inside the house.
Okay.
We just assess it from the street. If it's a brand new house being built, then we may, we'll walk around, take measurements and that type of thing. We'll take pictures of the property, and then at least once every 4 years, we'll come by and review the property again.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a law that, we're supposed to review each piece of property at least once every 4 years.
I see.
So if you see one of my deputies out on the property taking pictures, that's what that is about. And a picture helps us in the office. If the owner calls, we can pull the picture up and it kind of helps us in talking about the property,
Sure.
from the office.
Okay, so it doesn't have to be
So-
done every year, it's every 4 years.
Every 4 years for review,
Mhm.
but we're still charged with, at least, on January 1st of every year, assessing all property in Hardin County at 100% fair cash value.
Okay.
So, if we become aware of something that's not in our review area, then we're required to go ahead and make an adjustment, on that piece of property.
Gotcha. And so an assessment is not the same as an appraisal.
Exactly.
I think that's where folks get confused.
Right, and that's the reason, we assess the property. If we increase the value on that property, we're required to send a notice, to everyone that, hey, we have increased your value. Do you agree with it? If you don't agree with it, call us, and then we'll work through that process to try to come to an agreement of, well, what is the property worth?
So tell us about some of the concerns that folks might face, whether it's an addition to their property, a deletion, maybe they're disabled. Are those some of those things that factor into your assessments?
Right. Well, this is, the end of October. A couple of cities have already mailed out property tax bills. Hardin County will be mailing out property tax bills the first week of November.
Okay.
Now, many times we'll have issues with mailing addresses. Several of those property tax bills will be returned, and then we start trying to figure out, well, where are the owners located to these
Sure.
properties. So it's very important, if a property owner moves and they need to have their property tax bill sent somewhere else or whatever, we need to have a good address on everybody in the county, because it just creates a lot of problems. We've heard many times, I didn't get my property tax bill,
Sure.
and my address was this, we had another address. So it does become a big issue, especially if someone forgets that they're supposed to get a property tax bill. It's not paid, it goes delinquent. August of the next year, they're sold to a third-party
Oh, my.
company that tax on additional fees.
Mm.
So it's better to address the issue up front, and don't think that, well, I didn't get the property tax bill, I don't have to worry about it.
Right. I still pay taxes this year.
So, I just ask everybody to really pay attention and make sure that, we have the proper mailing address for everybody. And then you asked the question about the homestead exemption or the disability exemption. There's very few provisions in the tax laws that give it property tax relief. And this is one of the provisions that does,
Provide a
give
little relief.
relief for people. The homestead exemption, if you're 65 years or older, and this is your personal primary residence. It can't be used for rental property. It's for your personal primary residence. You contact us and let us know that. You can go on our website, HardinCountyPVA.com. There's a lot of good information on there about it, plus the actual form that can be mailed in to us so that we can make sure that they get the homestead exemption.
Okay.
And then there's the other item is the disability exemption. Now that's you can't get both the homestead and disability. It's homestead or
Oh, one or the
disability.
other, okay.
Yes. So if you're under 65 and you're 100% totally disabled, then you need to apply to my office to get that disability exemption.
Oh, okay. I bet a lot of folks don't know about that.
Well, that's the problem. A lot of times, people don't know. And the homestead exemption, we can actually go back 2 years,
Oh, okay.
to take care of that. But with the disability exemption, you have to apply for that in the year that you're requesting that exemption,
Oh, okay.
by the Kentucky Constitution. So, if you qualify in 2016, you still have the end of December to make application, even though you've already got your property tax bill. But January 1, 2017, we can't give a disability exemption for 2016 if it hasn't been applied for.
Sure, it has to be done during that current year.
Right.
And when is the window, I guess, or the dates of the home inspection period? Is there a certain time of year that your folks are out and people should be aware, or it's year-round?
It's year-round. I've got people in the field all the time, basically, because not only doing the reviews, But then, people that build new property, we're out checking that, that property also.
Sure.
So it goes on all year long. Because keep in mind, everything, we've got to come up with a value as of January 1
Right.
every year.
Wow.
So right now, we're working on January 1, 2017,
Sure.
even though the 2016 bills are going out.
Yeah, and folks have that window, of course, to get them paid.
To get them paid, the property tax bills for Hardin County will go out, by November 1st, and then by November 30, to get the 2% discount, people should pay their property taxes.
Yeah, and that discount makes a big difference.
It sure does.
2%. I know people complain, it's always in November, it's around the holidays, it's not a good time, but talk about how much more costly and what some of the side effects, you kind of mentioned it, of being delinquent and paying your tax bill.
Right. I mean, then from December 1 to December 31, you can pay face value, and then after that, it's delinquent, and fees start adding up to that. Now, and we work very good with the Hardin County Clerk and the Hardin County Sheriff. My office is a state office. Hardin County government is required by law to provide me office space and furniture.
So you're in the fancy new place.
So I'm in the Hardin County government building.
Yes, very nice, very convenient for folks.
And we assess the property. We hand the tax roll over to the county clerk, which is Debbie Donnelly. They print the tax bills. They get the tax rates from the different taxing districts. They print the tax bills. They're handed over to the Hardin County Sheriff. Then the Hardin County Sheriff mails the property tax bills out. Like I said, they'll be going out first week of November, and then the Hardin County Sheriff collects those bills.
So folks need to be watching their mailboxes, and if
watch
you
their
don't
mail.
receive a bill,
They need to check and check with us to see what the mailing address is, and see exactly what the problem is. That's right.
because there could be. For any and all property in Hardin County, folks
Right.
need to know that. If you own a little
Trailer or mobile home, farm,
Yes.
commercial building,
Yes.
residential, and all those type things. And the other item is, I mean, if you do have 10 or more acres that you're using for agricultural purposes, there's an agriculture exemption
Oh, good. Let's talk about that.
in the Constitution. So basically here in Hardin County, if I remember the numbers correctly, we've got like about $1 billion worth of farmland,
Really?
and exempt is about 550 million of that,
Wow. So over 50%.
or not closer to 600
Yeah.
million,
Wow.
because there's only like $347 million of farmland that's on the tax rolls.
Oh, I see. Because most people, if they do have a farm, it's definitely over 10 acres.
So the Constitution provides a relief provision for farmers, basically. So when it helps the farmers out, and basically it's trying to determine the value of that land based on an ag value instead of development type purposes.
Yes, those are apples and oranges, basically, two different types of.
So if anybody has 10 or more acres that are being used for agricultural purposes, they need to contact our office for that.
Okay.
And even with the back on the homestead and disability exemptions, I mean, there's over $300 million of relief. That's a reduction in value related to the exemptions provided for the homestead and disability.
I see.
And if you talk about dollars, for each person that gets an exemption, see, it reduces your value by right now $36,900.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
So that's over $300 thereabouts in tax savings.
Wow.
Related to that.
Okay.
So
that's a huge savings for folks, especially if they are someone that's homebound or disabled.
yeah.
Wow.
And the other provision of the Constitution is for exempt property, totally exempt.
Yeah, let's talk about that. What is an exempt property? And
Well,
I'm assuming we have some here in Hardin County.
Yeah, we've got over $1 billion worth of
Really?
exempt property, not counting Fort Knox.
Oh, gosh, okay.
Okay, so
yeah,
I
that's a
don't
whole
even-
nother
Right.
entity.
And that's property that's religious entities,
Okay,
purely public charities, government buildings,
of course, okay.
schools,
That makes sense.
and that pretty much takes care of most of the exempt properties here in Hardin County.
Okay.
So, I mean, I guess you could look at it like this. If everything was taxed, we'd have about $8 billion on the tax roll.
Ooh.
If we didn't have homestead exemptions,
Yeah.
disability exemptions, agriculture exemptions, any exempt properties, we'd have over $8 billion. But once you put in the exemptions, we're down to $5.8 billion in real estate.
Wow.
All right, so that's
a
real
lot.
estate.
Yes.
And then-
growing every year, I
Yes,
assume.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
as
we have,
new developments come about.
Our increase in values range between 1% and 3% every year.
Okay.
And a whole lot of that's due to new additions in
Gotcha.
Hardin County.
That's pretty fascinating. That really
Yeah.
is. So you're constantly, your staff may not necessarily be growing, but our community is growing, our county is growing. So how many folks do you have on staff with you?
I've got 10 full-time deputies, one part-time, and then myself.
Okay. So
And
they're
that's
out
one
with that.
less than I started with.
Okay.
So-
And talk a little bit about the PVA position, because we talked about the relationship. It is a state position. It's not a Hardin County government position.
Right.
And is it elected or is it appointed?
Well, it's an elected position.
Okay.
So I serve at the pleasure of the citizens of Hardin County.
Yes. And so far, you've been
Yeah.
doing a great job.
Well, I hope so.
And we know
so.
it's not like your regular, though, just running for city council type position. There's an exam. There's a lot of requirements to even
Right.
to be eligible. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
24 years old, resident of Hardin County. The Department of Revenue gives a test to see if you're qualified to to be the PVA.
Yeah.
All right.
So, and I hear it's a very difficult test. So that very.
Well, I don't know if it's that difficult. I passed it. So.
Well, you're a mathematical wizard, and
No.
CPA and all that, so I think, yeah, you got to be pretty, you got to know
Yeah.
these tax laws, for Pete's sake. You've got to know the Constitution and the tax laws, and things are constantly changing, so I'm sure it's
Right.
a lot.
Well, I mean, that's a big part of it, but I think I look at it, the biggest part of it is being able to sit down and talk with people. Because we have people come in, discuss their property and so forth, and we always look forward to that.
Yeah.
Try to work things out with the people. And, on that same note, if we can't work things out, I'm not the final authority on.
Okay, that was going to be
On
my
the
next
base.
question. Is the
I thought
PVA
it
the
might
final? You thought it. I gave you a little heads up. But yes, is the PVA the final authority as the assessed value? Or does the buck stop here?
No, we are not. I mean, we're there to put the assessments on property, work with the property owners to come up with a fair value.
Okay.
And we do that, I think, pretty good with everybody. But on occasion, I mean, we might have a property owner that really feels like, that property is not worth that much. I've never had one that says it's worth a whole lot more than that.
Please assess me more, please.
But it's
possible.
It's possible, and there's good reason many times. So if the property owner can't agree with us, then we have an inspection period that starts in the first Monday in May every year.
Oh, okay.
And we can put a notice in the newspaper about that. Anybody that has had an increase in their assessment, we send them a notice,
Okay.
and it states on there when our inspection period is.
Oh, okay.
So the first Monday in May is very important to know, because that's when the inspection period takes place for 13 days.
Oh, wow.
6 days each week,
Okay.
2 Saturdays. And by the 13th day, then our inspection period ends. And if anybody that has met with us doesn't agree with our assessment, then they file an appeal process with the county clerk
I see.
by the end of the next business day, with the county clerk after the inspection period.
Oh, okay.
And then a local board of assessment appeals will meet no earlier than 25 days, no later than 35 days
Okay.
after the inspection period then.
Gotcha.
And that board is appointed by the judge executive, Hardin County Fiscal Court, and the mayor of Elizabethtown,
I see.
a
Okay.
3-member board.
Gotcha.
And then that board will listen to, why I think the property should be assessed at this amount. They'll listen to the property owner.
Okay.
And then they will come to an agreement, or the board will decide what value they want to put on it.
And that may be different than.
It could be
Either
my
way.
value, could be the property owner's value, could be something in between.
Gotcha.
And if I disagree, if the property owner disagrees, then we can appeal that to the Kentucky Board of Tax Appeals.
Oh, wow.
So it's a big
can-
process,
yeah.
and then you've got that same thing that takes place. And then after that, if you don't agree, then you take it to court in the circuit court, and then you got the Court of Appeals,
Oh, my.
and then the Kentucky Supreme Court.
So it could
So
really
there's-
go
It
on.
could go, I mean, there's a case going on right now that we have in abeyance with the Kentucky Board of Tax Appeals because of a similar case that is at the Kentucky Court of Appeals, that my cases are in abeyance pending the outcome of that case
Oh, wow.
because they're so related.
Okay. So you're in a holding pattern somewhere.
Yes, for about 3 years
Oh, my goodness.
on all four properties, I think, so.
Wow. So there really are many levels to this if someone is not satisfied. And
Yes,
it-
and I always point that out. I mean, we're just trying to come up with a fair cash value and work with the property owner. But if we can't come to an agreement, then there is, these other eyes and ears that can
Right,
look at
other avenues.
that situation.
So it's not just Danny Hutcherson saying, that's it.
That's it.
Done.
And no.
Get out of my
No,
office.
we
and
try
we're
to
done.
work. We try to work with everybody.
Yes, your staff is extremely accommodating and courteous because, again, most of us, the average citizen, we don't understand tax laws and the Constitution and know what should be happening. And so anytime I go into your office, they are so friendly, so helpful, and can provide any service, answer any question, and they've just been so accommodating.
Well,
so.
I'm glad to hear that.
Well,
I
thank
hear
you
that
for
from
that.
most everybody in the
I
county.
bet you do.
And I'm very pleased with my deputies. I mean, they're well trained. My emphasis from when I had an accounting practice from my years in the Army has always been to listen to people. If someone comes in, they're in there for a reason. They've got an issue that we need to listen to the issue and try to figure out, well, how can we help them with that issue?
Exactly.
How can we make it work? Many times we can't make it work, but we sure want to try to do it that
Well,
way.
sure. And just listen. Most people just want to be listened to. They just want someone to air their
Well, they want you
concerns
to pay attention. I mean, we want to be an office that assists. We don't want to be an office that obstructs.
Oh, I like that.
I mean, and over the years in the accounting practice, I mean, you would encounter certain offices in state or federal that instead of trying to help, they'd want to put a roadblock up
Oh,
or
gosh,
something.
that's not good. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's so important.
Oh, heavens, yes, yes. And so let's talk about some of those important dates that people need to be aware of.
All right.
Mark your calendars, folks. You need to save these dates.
First Monday in May.
Yes.
That's when our inspection period is scheduled to start. And the reason it's so important, I mean, you're going to get a tax bill here. You may have already got Elizabethtown's or Radcliffe's. You're going to get Hardin County's next month. At that point in time, for the most part, it's too late to talk about the value that we have assigned to it.
True.
That's the reason the inspection period is. I mean, we've got to have that time period to close out the tax roll. And then that information is given to the different taxing districts for their budgeting purposes.
I see.
So we can't be changing values later on after the tax bills go out. So everybody needs to be aware of, checking to see what the assessment is before we close out that inspection period in May.
Okay.
That's an important time. I mean, if you have a business, filing that tangible personal property tax return is important.
Yes.
And it's due in our office by May 15th every year.
Okay. And that's every business. Doesn't matter small, large, corporate.
Right. I mean, if they have assets, most likely they need to be reported on that tangible personal property tax.
Okay.
I mean, if you're a small mechanic operation, to
To a large factory, a hospital,
or
whomever you might be.
whatever. And see, we have about a little over $400 million of value that comes through that, tax bills go out on that also.
Okay. So that's very important.
So you got the 5.8 billion, over 400 million in tangible property, around 700 million in vehicles and boats.
Oh my gosh.
They get taxed here in
Yes.
Hardin
But yeah, we
County.
didn't even talk about that and think about vehicles and boats.
Vehicles. And our major area in that is because those values are assigned centrally at state. Our involvement is in that is if someone has a vehicle that maybe it has been wrecked, it has extraordinary amount of mileage on it, then we can take a look at that and maybe adjust the value some.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You know, so that's our involvement with vehicles and trailers.
Okay.
So if you count all that up, you know, 5.8 million and 400 some million and 700 million in boats and vehicles, you know, that's value that's being taxed, and you know, that tax revenue goes to the state, county, schools, you know, and whatever other taxing districts that have some involvement with the health district, ag district.
Yeah, everything. Things to make our community better.
That's right.
Okay, so those are really important dates we need to be mindful of. And of course, those bills are coming, so you get a 2% discount if you pay by November 30th. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah, that's for, you know, it's 30 days. So like if the city of Radcliffe has already mailed theirs out, they may have a different date than November 30.
Gotcha.
Or they may go ahead and extend it to November 30. I hadn't seen one of their bills. But for Hardin County tax bills that go out, they typically November 30, and after that, you know, you pay face amount.
Gotcha. Okay, so get your savings in while you can.
That's right.
Save that little bit of money. And of course, you all have a website. You mentioned that, hardincountypva.com.
Yes, I'd invite people to go take a look at the website, give you a little better idea of all the different things that we are doing. Plus, it has these application forms for the homestead and disability exemption that I mean, you can fill out, make a copy of your driver's license, you know, so that we can see that you're 65 or older,
Awesome.
and take care of that. You know, back to that mailing address issue. I mean, just a couple of days ago, I received an envelope that we mailed out back in April.
Just now returned.
Just now returned.
It's only 6 months. What happened? It went the long way. It went to China and back, I suppose.
You know, again, the mailing address issue is so important.
Yes.
And I really want to emphasize that.
It really is, because we don't want to hear the dog ate your homework excuse. I didn't get my bill, so I just didn't
Well,
pay
I mean,
it.
we'll have stack of returns like that.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like, and then we're trying to figure out, well, where do these people go?
Right. Where's their, yeah, there should be a forwarding address, shouldn't there, typically?
But a lot of times, it didn't get to the forwarding address, or it's been too long, you know, just all kinds of different
Just all
things.
kinds of crazy things have happened. So the mystery, that's probably part of the fun part of your job, is tracking them down, that mystery.
Yes.
Playing spy. So, and what's the phone number? If folks have questions, they can always give you a call, of course.
270-765-2129.
Great. And the office is located in the Hardin County
Government building over
building.
on Patriot Parkway, and we're on the second floor.
Awesome. So folks can
So-
see in person, call you, or check the website. And of course, they always see you at our community festivals and events. You are notorious for always being visible and riding in the parades.
It's amazing how many conversations I'll get about properties at the different events.
That's awesome. Well, we love seeing you, and thank you for doing that. And thanks to all your staff for your hard work. And we know it's a tough job, and we appreciate your staff for all that they do.
I appreciate you saying that, Kendra, and I'll pass that on to them.
Please do. Thank you. Well, we certainly hope that you all enjoyed this episode and learned a lot. I know I did, and have gotten a lot of great questions answered. So thank you for sharing that with us, Danny. And hopefully folks will take the time to make sure they have the correct mailing address, get their property ready and assessed, and you'll be on the right track. So thank you again for tuning into this edition of Issues and Insights. I'm Kendra Scott. We'll see you next time. I hope you have a great day and a very happy fall.